And we now talk to the Coordinating Council of Private Educational Associations of the Philippines, or COCOPEA. Joining us live via Zoom is Managing Director Joseph Noel Estrada. Good morning, Attorney Estrada. Thank you for joining us. Do share with us, what are the sentiments of your members now, a few days after the Education Department ordered a full face-to-face setup for classes by November? Because we understand that you've been pushing for a hybrid or blended learning setup.
Good morning, Ria. Yesterday we formally filed our appeal to the Office of Secretary Sara Duterte to lift the ban on blended and hybrid learning starting November 2. So the sentiment is, first of all, I'd like to clarify that the private education sector is not against face-to-face classes, but we are just appealing for us to be given flexibility in delivering other platforms that support face-to-face classes. So it's not a full 5-day in-person classes, but with options for blended and remote learning platforms to supplement that during the school week.
All right. Now, as of now that, that rule stands, full face-to-face by November, what are the adjustments being made or that will be made in order to comply with the order, but at the same time ensure the safety of students and teachers? Will there be a sort of shifting in schedules? How is that going to work? Will it be staggered in a way? Because we understand that, talagang mababawasan yung capacity ng classrooms to make sure that there's social distancing.
That's one of the main points in our appeal. In implementing a full in-person classes, that will also affect the ability of the private schools to supervise the children in campus because they're in full capacity. So it affects our ability to implement social distancing, for example, and looking after the children better in the schools. It's also a problem when a child falls ill, then that student would have lost more in terms of learning than having a flexible learning option. So that's one. It's capacity that's important to us, and then of course quality. We feel that information and communications technology is still a powerful tool and an important medium. If in content delivery, especially if it's integrated in the teaching and learning process together with the face-to-face or in-person classes in our schools. And then of course the last one is we want to support the parents who believe that a blended learning platform is effective in their schools, and if there's an option for that, then they should be supported in that choice.
For you, Attorney, what is the ideal number of students that should be inside a classroom at any given point in time?
In the last administration, there was this guidelines issued a 20-person, 20 student in a class limit. So we're not also sure whether that would be implemented because in the new department order, there was no mention of that anymore. But even then, we would have to comply with the LGU restrictions. And of course, these are international standards on safety on COVID-19 health protocols. So we cannot totally disregard social distancing, limitation in classroom capacity. And again, that affects the private education sector because we cannot just build classrooms and buildings like what DepEd plans to do in order to accommodate everyone.
All right, let's go back to the parents, Attorney. You mentioned them earlier. I'm sure you've spoken to many, many families. What is their sentiment on this? Because a lot of parents have also invested and prepared for blended learning.
Yes, a lot of them are excited to integrate in-person classes in the blended learning platform. But then again, they're also surprised that suddenly the schools are announcing that there will be no more remote learning platforms starting November 2. So they're also very much concerned, especially because a lot of the schools are starting to open already, and the schools have already planned together with the parents how this will be done in the coming school year. So that's the sentiment right now. So we're trying to, again, to have some dialogues with them with this recent issuance of the Department of Education.
Attorney, are there any other concerns that you hope will be addressed before the implementation in November?
That's the main thing. So we just wanted to be clarified, especially on the health protocols. And then again, that's the main thing. We want that ban on hybrid and flexible learning be lifted, because I think that's the future of education, not only in our country but all over the world. So perhaps we would be the only country in the world who would be banning hybrid and flexible learning in classes in the private sector.
All right. So you sent in you filed your appeal yesterday, to lift this ban on hybrid classes. But ideally, if you were in charge, how would you want the education setup to look like?
Number one, if there's a separate department order for private, without, of course, preempting our secretary, I think it would be ideal if we separate the transition policies in the private education sector from the public school system, because we have very different policy environments. We cater to different students. And again, the platforms were differently implemented during the past 2 years. So I think that would be a big step if there will be a supplemental policy or separate DO on DO 34. Then we can talk about implementation matters and management of resources and health protocols. So I think that would be a big step. We're also very hopeful after hearing Secretary Sara yesterday in one of her interviews that she's open and the president is open to dialogue with other sectors on this ban on blended and remote platforms after November.
All right, Attorney,
After
thank
October.
you so much for your time this morning. We do appreciate it. That was COCOPEA Managing Director Joseph Noel Estrada.